Central Weekly, a weekly podcast from the Central Podcast Network. Jared LaCrone.
Hey, buddy.
Jon Henninger.
There he is.
In the captain's seat. Co-captain seat.
Here we are to host the Central Weekly together. You're really the host. I'm more the guest, and that's all right. You are the man driving this.
Episode number 56 of the Central Weekly. We're at a series within a series because we're looking at A Credible Account, week number 4. That'd be Cuatro.
Yeah.
For our Spanish-speaking audience that we always try to adhere to. But we're looking at week 4, A Widow's Jar.
A Widow's Jar.
And it could be multiple. It could be multiple jars. You know,
right?
So we're going to get into that. But also in the conversation is a great conversation with Ron Riley. Who's Ron Riley, you might ask?
Tell us, Jared.
He is the executive director at Cookson Hills in northeastern Oklahoma. It's a child's home, it's a school, it's therapy. It's all in one for those kids at risk.
Fantastic.
It's a great conversation, Jon. This is a guy that is there for a reason, and he's doing a great job in this leadership role. Cookson Hills, again, is an organization that as a central family, we support through our missions budget. And he's got a great conversation. So good, so good. And he tells a lot of good stories of those kids that lives are being changed in Jesus' name. And they're doing a great job in northeast Oklahoma.
Good deal. Sounds like a conversation you want to stay tuned for.
Or skip ahead to and come back to us. We're always okay with that because we're going to talk about A Widow's Jar.
Would you have said okay so emphatically had you have not just been singing Oklahoma?
Absolutely not.
I don't think so either.
Oklahoma is one of my favorite musicals. Family's favorite musicals. I was a part of it as a freshman in high school. I had the role of Jeb. No, Jeb was the mean guy. No, what was my role? Okay, all I know, I don't even know if I had a name.
Okay.
Slim. I was Slim.
Nice.
Literally and character-wise.
Nice.
And my line as a freshman, 2 bits.
That was your line.
2 bits.
2 bits.
That's it.
Nice.
And I broke my arm in a motorcycle accident. No, I was roller skating. And I don't know how to stop when you roller skate. So I just slammed into maybe I told you this, slammed into the walls and fractured my wrist, like just a hairline fracture. But ended up it was like, hey, I'm okay. I don't need this. And then that mom's like, we're taking you and getting a cast on it. Well, I was in this stage production of Oklahoma. They didn't have casts back then. So I got a red cast to match my red cowboy shirt. Nobody knew.
Wow.
Nobody knew. But I had to be very careful in the fight scenes that I just didn't like whip somebody with that cast.
For sure. That'd take somebody out.
Yeah, but it's good. Oklahoma, where this? Yeah.
I've never seen it.
Oh my God.
I know. I feel real bad.
I understand some of your childhood, Jon. But to me, your family in particular, Oklahoma would be right up its alley.
You would think, but to be honest,
Roger and Hammerstein, Oklahoma.
I mean, musicals.
Yes.
I feel like cantatas was more of my family's thing, like church cantatas, not so much like well-known mainstream musicals.
I wouldn't even call that crazy. We were just talking about music. We're going to continue on this side note for a little while. It's funny because music, where Maria was wanting to listen to classical music, but she also wanted to listen to music that would be uplifting and God-honoring. But the crazy thing about classical music back in the day, it was all God-honoring. There was no difference between what is secular music and what is Christian music. It was all Christian music because every music was meant, everything you did back then was meant to honor God.
Yeah.
How the times have changed.
Yeah, they really, I grew up listening to a lot of classical music and Southern gospel, and that was really about it. And so
there she blows.
Add all that stuff up and then put an equal sign in my picture.
That's a little Jon Henninger. We're going to put a picture of little Jon Henninger in the description of this podcast.
Yeah.
No, I just wanted to see if people actually listen to or look at the descriptions. So they don't. Here we go. Widow's Jar.
Yep.
From 2 Kings.
Not
to be confused with 1 Kings and Elijah.
Right.
We're talking about Elisha.
Right.
Not to be confused with our middle school pastor. Her name is
Elisha.
Spelled like?
Okay. Her name is spelled like Elisha, but it's pronounced Elisha. Elisha.
Yes.
Yeah.
No E. It's yes E, no A.
Like A-L.
Yes.
However you spell Alicia, A-L-I-C-I-A, Alicia, like
we're
that.
We're gonna thank Mitch McDowell for that
way.
one.
Right.
Yeah. So here's the thing. This lesson, would you like to start our conversation like we have started conversations, or we've ended those? Are you gonna wait to do the aha?
I've got this drink here in my hand. I'll listen to it. what flavor does that sound like to you? You can be thinking about that. I'm going to go ahead and crack it open later on in the episode, and then I'll announce the flavor of the day, the flavor du jour.
And I think this episode, or this sermon, not to be confused with episodes, this lesson was reminiscent of a bygone era.
Really? Tell me more why.
Because you used 3 words that we heard a lot with the Central family back in the day. The 3 words are, write this down.
Oh, yeah.
And man, did you have a lot of write downs.
Yeah, well, I mean, like it was just one of those where a lot of times, most of the time, we will look at a segment of scripture or like a kind of a topic for the day, and we'll really have one big kind of
zero in on that one.
Takeaway point. This is it. And honestly, I set out for this sermon. I mean, you can read the description originally. Like, I set out for this sermon originally to focus exclusively on the on God's unlimited resources, right? But as I went through it, I was like, I mean, like there are lessons here that I feel like need mentioned, and so like we didn't spend as much time on the first 4, but for sure there are 5 lessons in five verses in that stretch of scripture.
All right, so take us back to the credible account of Elisha.
Okay.
So Elisha, if you're familiar with this, he's the second prophet after. He's kind of like the Robin and Batman and Robin. You know,
sure.
But then he took over.
He's the follow up to Elijah.
Yeah, he's the.
And I'll tell you, just for those of you at home, I always remember this because they came in the Bible alphabetically.
Oh,
it helps me remember that. Like the J became before the SHA. So like you always remember that's how they came in order.
And is Elisha? He never died.
Elijah.
Gosh, see, I already did it. I had a goal for this whole episode not to confuse the names, and I already did it. So let's go into it. You've got, now, Elisha is a bald man, because we know that from the context, that he gets made fun of by, this is my favorite story of Elijah.
Right. Oh, that's what we're talking. You're talking about Elijah.
No, Shah. Okay. Shah's bald.
Okay.
Right? Look it up, please.
Okay.
But my favorite story of this prophet is that he's walking down the road and you've got some mean boys that start making fun of him. And what does he do as a prophet, holy man of the Lord? He sicks some bears on them, and the bears maul the boys to death.
I mean, you got to be careful.
That's some Old Testament stuff right there.
Yeah, you got to be.
You don't read that in the New Testament. Am I right in the prophet?
Yeah.
Good. Oh, okay.
Yeah, good job.
So you're going into this man. Now he's going into a widow's home, and the widow has nothing. And go from there.
She says she has nothing.
Exactly.
And that, of all of these, I don't know how you want to go about this. I don't know what your sequence is here, but like
we're going to follow the points that you did.
Of all of the points, then we might want to save that. We started
start was out verse 1.
So the story is, there's this lady who was married to a guy who was in Elisha's like main group of prophets. Like the people that were part of his
entourage.
Yeah, did ministry with him, the whole deal. And she doesn't have. Her husband dies. They have 2 sons. She's exhausted all of her other resources, and now she's kind of come to the point where she has no other options because creditors are knocking on the door saying, I'm going to take your 2 sons as slaves if you don't pay up. So she goes to the boss. She goes to Elisha and says, hey, can you help me? And he says, what do you have available? What do you have in the house? And she says, nothing at all. Except I have this little flask of oil. And then basically Elisha, as a prophet of God, through God's power, does this, gives her some instruction and ends up taking care of the issue that she's in.
Boom. In that story, you have 5 points. And you said there could have been an unlimited supply. In your words, you said a whole year's worth of lessons.
I mean, there's just so many minute things here that you really could follow up on. I mean, like this wasn't to benefit the man of God. This was to benefit the family of the man of God. This wasn't, it doesn't say how she got in all this debt. It just says that she's in all this debt. There's just so many things here that you could pick out to talk about. But the 5 main points here are the ones that we talked about in verses 1 through 5.
This story kind of, if you're a chosen person like myself, the season 3, they do a really good role or job of playing a storyline of what's it like to be Peter's wife left behind while he goes and does ministry. And this reminds me of that. With you have a family that is left behind from a man that went to do ministry, but then died doing that ministry, maybe. And we're making that assumption here. But she's left, and the man of God decides he's going to provide for her and help provide and let God use the people to provide for her. And so your first point from verse 1 was good people have hard times.
Yes.
Duh.
Which, I mean, is something that we've talked about a decent amount of time.
have.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about that a decent amount, so we didn't want to spend a whole lot of time there, but it's always good to remember that even if you are, the godliest person, if you have dedicated your life to, supporting your husband in ministry, it doesn't exclude you or preclude you from difficult circumstances.
Verse 2, you had 2 points.
No, yes, we had one point, one main point there, and really this kind of a sub point. Very, yeah. So verse 2, lesson 2, and that is, this one to me kind of connects with my mind, what I think is probably common for a lot of us.
Yeah.
And the point here, and I'll just read that verse real quick. So this is 2 Kings 4:2. What can I do to help you? Elisha asked. Tell me, what do you have in the house? Nothing at all, except a flask of oil, she replied. The point here is what we think is nothing, God can make something. And so often we don't recognize what we have as anything at all. Like, hey, what do you have to offer God? What do you have to give to the kingdom or to be a part of the kingdom? Nothing at all. Except I guess I'm good with people, or nothing at all except I'm friendly, I guess, or I'm good at I do tech stuff, I guess, or like we say I've got nothing, well, except this, and this is the same circumstance, right? Like I've got nothing at all in my house except for this flask of oil. Bing, bing, bing. Sometimes is what we overlook that God wants to use to do the miracle.
I would even add a point that sometimes He uses our difficulties. Like things that we think we're not good at, or things that we were overlooked for, or the difficulties in our life. He's going to use that too. So I think, again, this is a situation where she had a difficulty of being a widow, and this was she could have just said, I have nothing. I am nothing now. But she, is now something because she allowed God to work in her, and she allowed God to work through her. Like you said last week, made the nothingness. What was it last week?
Right, yeah. So, last week we talked about how God can make something out of your nothing.
Yeah.
This week, God can for sure do this, but this week, that point is more of God can do a lot with your little.
Exactly. And so, verse number 3, point 3, we are stronger in community.
Yeah, and we talk about that a lot here at Central. Relationships matter the most because they lead us to the relationship that matters the most. And we say that a lot because there is just such value. There's so much importance to our earthly human relationships. God uses these relationships to, one, bring us to Him in the first place a lot of times, but two, sharpen us in our walk with Him, and just develop us as people. Proverbs 27, iron sharpens iron, so a friend sharpens a friend. And that's really what we see happen here in the third verse of the fourth chapter is Elisha, she presents the need, and Elisha's instructions are borrow as many empty jars as you can from your friends and neighbors. So on her own, she didn't have the capacity to see this miracle play out or to hold what this miracle was going to bring. But God used her friends and her neighbors to supply for her need in that moment of need.
Here's the thing. You're looking at that point from her point of view. I'm going to look at it from their point of view. If you have a relationship right now, you need to be making that relationship, that person, a better person. So what can you do to provide for them? What can you do to be an iron that's going to sharpen their iron? How can you make your friends better people? Because I think we're called to do that. We're not called to just be a friend that just there and hangs when they need somebody to hang. That's important, and there's a little aspect, but there's so much more if you can sharpen their iron.
I know what you're saying. You need to be, just go ahead and get your design book out right now and start doing a design that says jar lender. Because, sometimes, here's my point. Sometimes I think we have this tendency, I've got this extra jar, but what if I need it sometime?
Ah,
What if, I mean, I don't need it right now, but I might.
Yeah.
I would let you borrow it, but there's a chance I'm going to need it. Like if you've got something available right now, then put it into use.
We have storage rooms in America full of, I might use that one day.
I mean, put it into use. God might want to use that in somebody else's life to make a life-saving difference in somebody else's life.
Yeah. So what can you do to make your friends better?
Jar lenders.
I don't think that's going to be.
that gonna
First
catch
of all,
on?
I want to make sure people know what you're saying. Jar lender.
Yeah.
Like jar.
Right.
And then you lend it.
I'm lending it.
You're a jar lender.
Jar lender.
Point number 4.
But you could combine it into one word.
Jar lender.
It would be like a dinosaur. A jar lender dinosaur.
It does kind of sound like.
It does, yeah.
And it would, but I think that would definitely be a carnivore.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I think, yeah. Verse 4, sometimes God prepares us in private. I loved, and I've heard this quote from Lisa Bevere. She and her husband, John, are at what church?
I don't know.
I don't know either.
Great job.
but they are some excellent authors. I've read a couple of John's things, and that's why I'm really trying to look at the back, like visually in the back of the book where it says about the author, what church. He's currently not at that church because they're taking their ministries full time outside of the church. But anyways, her husband's John. But this quote from Lisa is so good, and I hear it from, and you guys mentioned it, I think maybe week 1 of the songs we sing, about what Eric was saying about you told him and you challenge him, don't be the person. It's almost like the thing. You don't be the same person that you are on stage that you aren't in your private. So you're preparing yourself in the dark so you could shine in the light. But this is kind of the reciprocal. Yeah.
I mean, sometimes I think we just need to understand that sometimes what's happening in the dark is preparing the miracle that's going to be seen in the light.
Yeah.
You know,
Yep.
I mean,
Yep.
I went on to make the point that,
And we're looking at darkness as a good thing here, like the quiet and the privateness. A lot of times we say what people do in the dark.
Right. Yeah. Good point.
Okay. Continue, please.
But the oil can't stay a secret. I mean, in order for it to fulfill its purpose, the oil has to be seen by the public. It has to be bought by the public for those finances then to make their way to paying off her creditors, right?
Yeah.
So the miracle has to be seen by the public, but it's prepared behind closed doors. Go into the house, shut the door behind you. I don't know why they wrote that other than to make the point that sometimes God needs us to prepare in private for what's going to be revealed in public.
And I think another thing that you could have mentioned in this sermon was that she still had work to do. She still worked to provide for the need that she had. She was not meant, okay, here's all the jars, and this was what lasts you for the rest of your life. No, she had to sell that, and that's how she was able to pay off her debt. So she still worked. So it wasn't just like, here's a coupon for everything. No, it was something that she was able to benefit in her providing.
I've often wondered, and I can't say often wondered, but I have wondered.
Right now, I wonder.
This last week, as I was preparing this, I wondered. I wonder if like the bread that was made from that oil that was purchased was like super good. You know, like was it way better?
God is not going to provide something, and then just like this is okay.
This is a miraculously formed oil, like straight from, I mean, literally, I mean, like straight from a heavenly source. I wonder if that bread was extra delish.
I bet it was.
I bet it was too.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, that's all I got. Verse 5, 6, and 7.
Yep.
You comboed.
I did.
You did a combo.
Combine them. Yep.
God is the God of unlimited resources. This sounds familiar because this was your original main point.
This was.
And this is the one you hit the hardest.
Right, which is why we spent a decent amount of time on that one. But and correct me if I'm wrong, Jared. Maybe I'm the only one that thinks this way.
I love to do that.
Okay, great. Please do. We feel like sometimes there is just like this on the inside, this secretly like God only is going to do so much.
Yep. God only has.
And even if he has all of it, he's probably only going to do so much. And so there is,
or he's only going to give me as much as I need. Like he's only going to give me some of that.
There is this sense that like, if he is filling somebody else's jar, it's going to mean less for my jar. Yeah. Right?
Yeah.
And so that's what at least sticks out to me in this portion of the story. And, go on to make the rest of that point, which is praying for the good of another person or family or ministry or whatever it is does not lessen the blessing available to you. And I need to hear that as much as everybody else does.
Yeah. And I think that just keeps us in a kingdom mindset. I loved how we ended our sermon or lesson or serious sermon. Lesson. Service. That's the word. There's an S in there. But it makes you think this isn't all about you. It's not. And God uses, and here's the way sometimes I get frustrated when I see like why we have all these denominations, like why. But if you look at it, we're all the big church, and like you said, you said these are all. How did you phrase it? Bible believing, living. Say that for us.
So specifically, I talked about if there's a church that is believes that there's one way to heaven, that Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life, then go there, find a life-filled, Jesus-centered church that believes that you need to repent and then be baptized and then follow Christ with the rest of your life and believes in the authority of Scripture. Find a church like that and go there, for goodness sakes.
And I seem like within some of these different churches, God uses different ministries to reach different people. Or like some churches are good at some things and some churches aren't.
Right.
And I think that's a key thing to remember, that like we're made as the big church body. We're like, and I think just as like we could say, hey, I'm a finger and I'm a mouthpiece or I'm a forehead, like those are all different things. And I think that's with churches, that happens the same way too. That some churches are really good at benevolence and they really hit missions really hard, and that's what they excel at. Some are great at worship and connecting people and relationships. And I think if we then tune it in together and work together and pray for one another, that's what motivates communities, and that's what changes areas and zip codes.
Yeah, that's well said.
Yep.
Good job.
I like the differentiation between this week and last week, where last week I had no idea about the sermon.
Yeah, that's true.
And
yeah,
we're back to me hearing it twice and now trying to talk about it.
Yeah.
But I think it is important for us to know that we don't have to, nothing about us has to be. I loved how you shared the Drew story, because that had to be, I remember thinking about what was your mindset when I knew that the potential of him coming back to the area was.
Yeah.
And especially for somebody that hired you.
Right. This is somebody that I lived and worked under, knowing, just knowing what an influential leader that they were. I mean, one, to me, and two, to a bunch of people in the area that he would still have influence on. Yeah. And, there was for sure this moment where I think it kind of like in my humanness, in my flesh, it kind of feels like, okay, I didn't know about stepping into this role in the first place, but I'm walking in what I feel God has called me into, and then now all of a sudden, this has the potential to kind of take the wind out of the sails, when it comes to what's happening at Central. But am I more concerned about what is happening here, or do I trust God for the bigger picture and say that we really want the best for the kingdom of God in Mount Vernon?
And that's the thing. That's the word, is trust. Are you going to trust the Creator, or are you going to trust your little infinite mind that you have?
Right.
Infinite means like,
yeah.
So
finite is what you meant.
That's
infinite.
That's the big. Yeah. But it really, it's funny because when you could piece stuff from the New Testament, that's great. I don't know why I feel like, when you get all of these insights from an Old Testament, that's just like, that gets me excited.
Yeah.
Because it's just like, I love that God is still the same God of the Old Testament. He's the same as the New Testament. He's the same God that's working today. And I think that's why it's a credible account.
Oh, nice. John.
And I think that's why we have so much, if we apply the principles of these lessons to our own lives, and the same things that God was doing in Moses' life, that he was doing in Elisha's life, that he was doing in Jesus' life, he's doing those in our life today. Yeah. And we just need to sit back, trust, and witness what he can do.
Yeah. Very good. Well,
ready? Here we go.
The time has come.
Aha.
So, speak your last guesses out. One more. There it is.
Has nothing to do with
what does that sound like? It tastes like.
We need to go to video.
Ready? And 3, 2, 1.
I can see it, but I can't read it.
Okay.
So based on the colors and the fruit that I see on the front, I'm going to say orange grapefruit.
Oh!
Did I get it?
Oh, good job, Jared. You nailed it.
Really is orange grapefruit?
Orange grapefruit.
I'd like to try that, but then I forgot, it's seltzer water and it's disgusting.
Yeah, I'm not drinking it yet.
No,
I
I'm
just
not
opened it.
trying
You want
that.
some?
I had
I've
a
got another one
sniffles
upstairs.
last week. All right, so we're going to get into our conversation with Ron Riley, and that's hard to say, and Cookson Hills. But when we go into break, we're going to come out of our break on the podcast, going into playing a video from Cookson Hills telling about the story of Cookson Hills.
So it's a soundbite from a video on their website that you're going to play first, and then you'll get into the interview.
You got it. Perfect. Here it is. Thanks, Joe.
So Cookson Hills is at heart a children's home. We're located in northeast Oklahoma. It's a rural setting. We are on about 1,000 acres.
Cookson Hills is a safe place for kids that come from hard places. And it's a place that provides family for the kids, provides a great school and healing through either counseling or horses.
So for us, the mission at Cookson Hills is to provide kids that stability, that they can get up in the morning and just focus on getting to school, that they can know that they're going to get a meal today and they're going to have another one at supper, and they're going to be able to have a good weekend. They're going to play games and sports and just be able to be a kid. So when I say Cookson Hills is a children's home, we really are a children's home. So we have 12 physical homes for kids to live in with a mom and a dad.
So one of the things that sets Cookson Hills apart from other children's homes is we have a private Christian school on our campus that serves students in kindergarten through 12th grade.
And of course, we have our horses, which is very unique as the kids get an opportunity to, just cope and heal from a life of trauma. I think Cookson Hills is best at giving students a fresh start and something truly hopeful for their future.
I think a lot of kids out there don't realize how brave they really are. Like, I always saw myself as this scared person with a bad, low self-esteem. And after coming here, I was able to realize that I was able to build my self-esteem, and I was able to see, hey, you went through this stuff, but you overcame it. You were able to push through and grow through that.
I'm so proud of these kids. I have so much respect for them. I think sometimes they're afraid of what people here think of them. But I just tell them every chance I get, I love you guys. I'm so proud of you. And as long as you keep learning and growing and following God's way, He's going to take care of you. You'll let Him, and He will bless your life.
It is a lot of work. It is hard. It gets messy a lot of times. But in the end, it's about, do they know our Heavenly Father? Do they have hope that things can be different? Do they see themselves as capable, significant, and influential like they are? Am I proud of them? Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Ron Riley, Executive Director at Cookson Hills. Welcome to the Central Weekly podcast. How are you today?
I'm doing wonderful.
Well, we're excited to learn more about Cookson Hills. We started things a little differently than we have our last couple episodes of the Central Weekly when we're talking to our missions and our missionaries, because we agreed that video is so good and it just tells the story so well. And like you said, you get to hear some other voices of some impact and what God is doing in Cookson Hills through their 3 areas of home, school, and therapy. So I'm excited to dig in to Cookson Hills. But first, before we do that, Ron, we're going to break the ice. And we're going to get to know Ron Riley, Executive Director, first.
Awesome.
So, Ron, let's go into, are you ready for rapid fire?
All right, I'm ready.
Starting off, hitting it heavy. Favorite food?
Tacos.
All right. Favorite vacation spot?
The mountains.
Person in the Bible that you identify with most is?
Paul.
Paul. Day to yourself, what do you do? I don't know if that's even possible, but you get a day to yourself, what do you do? In an imaginary world, maybe.
I hike a trail here.
Okay. What is your biggest fear?
Probably still spiders.
Still spider. Most memorable moment as a dad.
It'd have to be birth of my daughter, our oldest. Yep.
Okay. And most memorable moment as executive director or just working at Cookson Hills.
I would say it was the day that when we transitioned our leadership and I stepped into the executive director role, and it was I had been assistant director, and my safety net was gone because that gentleman left, and it was here you go, Ron. So that day is still etched in my mind as, am I ready, God? Or are you sure this is where I'm supposed to be? There was a lot of uncertainty about the future. So, and then wasn't too many months later, we were going through a pandemic, and I said, "Oh, okay. Apparently nobody's ready for this." So,
well, Ron, good job with rapid fire. You did it. You made it through it, and so now we can talk about Cookson Hills. So, Ron, this place was started in 1957, and it sits on 1,000 acres in northeast Oklahoma, and it's for at-risk kids. So now you take it from there, my friend.
So, yeah, in the late 50s, early 60s. A man was using his wealth to come into one of the most depressed areas in Oklahoma and build churches, because he understood that you can't receive the gospel if you don't hear the gospel. And he knew how to build. He knew how to use a chainsaw, and he could build homes. He could mill wood and build churches. And so that's what he was doing. And then he was inspired to put in a boys' ranch, a school where kids could be taught the gospel, because there actually were orphans, literal abandoned children around this area quite a bit. His name was Mr. Dillon, and then he brought in the Kernans from Ohio, who had worked at a children's home, and they started the school. And so really the Kernans are the founders of the school. Mr. Dillon was kind of the inspiration behind it. He built a lot of the early buildings that were here. But since then, I mean, Cookson Hills has kind of reinvented itself multiple times as far as our campus and what it looks like. But that mission from the very beginning, we've got some literature talks about, like, quotes the Kernans talking about imagining a place where 100 children are served and go to school and learn how to live life. And as you read through what his vision was, it's exactly what we're doing today. We're still providing that home and that school, giving them a place to heal from their hurts and their traumas through therapy, and using the land, using the horses as a way to facilitate that growth and that spiritual identity, growing that in them as they begin to realize that I am loved by God. I'm created and unique and special. And whatever they might have thought of themselves before, our prayer is it changes into what God sees them as while they're here. So really, yeah, the shape of the campus looks a lot different than it did in the 60s, but it is still doing the same purpose. And that's because of Christians and partners around the world that see us as a place where God's still doing an amazing work.
So tell me about the kids. Let's go there. We're talking about at-risk kids, and I know that no two kids are the same. You could probably say that in your own family. But what does a typical kid look like? How does he get to Cookson Hills?
A typical kid is probably about 14 years old to 17. We can serve children up to the age of 18 and as young as 5. But I would say a typical kid is about 14. It's probably a girl, probably is being raised by a single guardian, whether that is an aunt or an uncle, grandparent, maybe a mom or a dad. Usually something has happened in the child's life recently that makes it so that the guardian is no longer able to provide care. So it could be a divorce, and we've had situations where the parent's working full time and just isn't able to provide care for their child, and their child is perhaps in an area where the risks are just high that something bad's going to happen when there's not supervision available there. We've had grandparents that aged out of the ability to care for a kid. So, taking care of a 6 or 7 year old might have been okay, but as the days went on, when by the time they're 14, grandma's quite a bit older and she can't really do that anymore. We've had definitely have had situations where kids were abandoned. We've got a couple students that were abandoned to a church. The youth pastor was able to get guardianship, but obviously wasn't able to be their dad, but he was able to place them here at Cookson. Those children have been here since I believe first grade, and will graduate as seniors this year.
Wow.
And so that may not be typical, but that does happen. And so yeah, every kid's unique. The kids will spend on average 18 months to 2 years with us. We consider ourselves a long-term placement. So our goal is not to just be a revolving door, because each time that if you've been in foster care, as kids come in, kids come out, you feel a loss, but that child also is learning to not trust, learning not to make relationships. They feel that brokenness as well. So we don't want to just continue that cycle. We want this to be a place where they can come. If they're a sophomore, stay till they graduate as a senior. Make this their last transition until they're ready to move out and try to do life on their own. So that's the goal for the kids that come. We serve kids from as far away as Florida and Georgia, all the way over to Oregon, California, of course, a lot through the Midwest from Indiana and Ohio, and of course, Oklahoma, Texas, Arkansas, Missouri, Kansas. Those are kind of our places. So where the Christian churches are typically is where they know about us, and so we'll have a lot of kids come from those different directions. And so our ability to serve kids, as I said, heard in the video, we have 12 homes. 9 of those are for full-time house parent couples. So the state says we could house 10 kids in a home, so we could serve up to 90 students. Typically, we serve about half of that in a year, just based on how much staffing we have, how many kids are coming and going. So we'll have room for about 45 to 50 kids, depending on how many house parents we have at the time. And so we're always looking for people to come and serve and be part of the ministry, because this is a vital need. We saw it through the pandemic. A lot of heartache and brokenness was perpetrated upon kids. They didn't have a safety net anymore. They didn't have a school to go to, and so we saw those kids that were at risk became statistics. A lot of them. So we're trying to step into that, and hopefully. With your partnership, we'll continue to do it.
Yeah. How many kids are currently on campus?
At the school right now, with our staff kids, I believe our population is 90, 80, 88, 90. So about 40 place kids, I think, right now. So
is that a high, or has that been higher before?
We'll serve about 45 to 50 kids a year, just depending on the year. I think we've been lower this year, but some of that was a staffing. So after the pandemic, we had it pretty rough. I know everybody did, but I think our house parents aged a couple years longer, so we did lose some house parents. So we're short on house parents right now. So our ability to serve students is down at the moment, but that's why I've got people that are interviewing for house parents right now. So that's a good thing. So, we'll pick back up as we get the staffing, but I'd say 45 is pretty average for us.
So a typical placement, you're talking, so this is a long-term placement, but it's not where they're going to stay until they age out of foster care, correct?
It can be. So in most states, 18, you age out of foster care at 18. That's the same for us here. At 18, you age out. The difference here is our placements are not done through the state. So they're all guardian placements. So the guardians have the say of how long a student stays. And then we do as well if they're not participating in the program. So if a kid their heart and their mind is checked out and they just can't they can't come back, they can't regulate back into the program for whatever reason, then we'll exit them at that point. But so it's a combination of guardians and students. Our goal is that they stay until they graduate, and graduation for them, they should be they should be 18 at that point. So most of them will finish, they'll turn 18 somewhere in their senior year, and the state will let us keep them in the homes and finish out. As long as they're going to school and participate in the program, they can continue. The risk just is if you have an 18-year-old in a home, different legal rules apply to those children. So even though they're still kids, the law sees them differently. So we have to be extra careful with them and make sure they understand they're being watched a little differently at that point from the state's perspective. So most of our kids will stay, like I said, a couple years, and they will not go back into foster care. More than likely, they'll go back to their guardian. And so maybe a different family member is going to provide care from that point forward. We've even had kids that have gone back because they thought everything was better, and then they realize, nope, a lot of work to do, and they come back to us. And so that's happened a time or two.
But I think that's a key thing there, different than a state-run home. This is something, like you said, the referrals have to come from the guardians themselves, or whoever that guardian either could be, or said, I can't be a guardian right now, but I know that this is the best place for them. Or behavior-wise, I know I can't handle this kid, and they're in amongst friends that aren't, that I can't keep them safe from. So I think it's really, it's what the church should be, in my opinion. And this is just almost like, I hate the word, it's the institution, because institutions get a bad rap now, but it's like, this is a formal structure of the church to meet a big need in our society.
Yeah. I'm not old enough to remember, but at some point, the society we live in decided, hey, the government's the best place to handle all these situations that we don't want to take care of. And before that, the church had always filled those needs. Mm-hmm. And, as our society has become more secular and less religious, we've seen not necessarily a positive correlation to the health of our children. And yet we as a church often just think, well, that's just the government's responsibility. They provide the foster care and all that. Mm-hmm. And we're just firm believers that, and I was a foster parent in a couple different states. So I'm not downplaying the role that foster care plays. We obviously can't provide care for everybody, but I know we do it better than what the state does. So our house parents, they have a 24/7 social worker on call that's here, that's a Christian, who will respond if a child becomes upset, at 10 o'clock at night. You don't have to wait till 7 tomorrow morning to have help. You've got somebody right here on campus that comes up and helps you with that process. Maybe takes that kid for a little drive and has a conversation about, what's going on. And, if you've been a foster parent, the helplessness that sometimes you feel as you're trying to care for all the kids, but you really got to focus on one that's in desperate need at that moment. So our community provides that wraparound care. And I just feel like there's just no way the state will ever have enough resources or people or manpower to meet that kind of need. And so kudos to everybody in foster care that's doing that. I salute you as a fellow foster parent and adoptive parent. Like, that's amazing work. If you want to do that kind of work, you should look at a Christian children's home. There's lots of them around. They don't all do what we do. I think we're kind of unique in that we provide the Christian school right here on campus. Our horse therapy was one of the original horse therapy programs in the world. Started right here at Cookson. Wow. Johnny Clark developed the spur model. We use that along with the Gala now. But it's an amazing program. And so, you should be looking into how can the church, whether it's maybe church Christians in your church signing up for foster care, becoming engaged in that process. But the church has to reclaim some of that responsibility we gave over to the state at some point to really make a difference in our culture long term.
Yeah, I think that's super important. Being fellow foster dads and foster, adoption, I think it's important to. I've always said this, and I think I've said this on the podcast before. Once you know, and you never can turn. To me, you can never turn your back on that, regardless of how hard it's going to be. I love you've got on your website that it's not foolproof, it's difficult, and it's worth it. And that summarizes working with kids, and especially at-risk kids, because it's difficult, and we're not going to sugarcoat the difficultness of it. But I always am I'm always lenient on saying how difficult it is because I never want to scare anybody away from the life of doing what we do. But again, it's something that's required of us as Christians, is to help the least of these. Again, I love your Psalm 34:18. The Lord is near to those who are discouraged. He saves those who have lost all hope. And it's so cool that God uses us to help in that mission.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, James, I mean, he lays it out. I mean, at the beginning of the church, here's one of our church fathers, original church fathers, brother to Jesus, saying, if you really want to get to the heart of what it is to be a religious person, someone who's truly Jewish in his context or Christian in our context, take care of the widows, take care of the orphans, like, and then live a righteous life. And that's what Cookson Hills, we have our staff, live by a righteous life. You have to be a Christian missionary to come and be here. That's just part of what the calling is. And so why do you have to live according to a certain lifestyle? Because that's part of the recipe to caring for the children that you're going to work with. They're going to be modeling your behavior. And so we expect that to be holy and true to God. But yeah, so I mean, at the beginning of the church, they saw it. And I mean, my understanding of church history is not great, but I mean, what I see is the growth of the church was in this area. They saw kids abandoned and they took them in and they raised them in the church, and the state had no power against that. They simply loved and outloved and outlasted the Roman Empire, and now we have Christians around the world because of that initiative to love and to rescue those who were lost. And it's really living out who Jesus was in our daily life, and it's a blessing to be here and be able to do that in such a real way constantly. Like, it's just an everyday attitude for our folks here.
Yeah, I think it's neat to, over the course of the last 3 weeks, looking at these missionaries, it's by providing a need, they're able to share the gospel. And this is just one big gaping need in our society.
Yeah.
That, I mean, you could probably put 12 more Cookson Hills just around the mountains, and they would all be full if you had the people that were there to do that. So let's break that down. Home, school, and therapy. The home, you said you got 12 homes on campus. Typical home, it has 10 kids in it, 2 parents. Now, I know a lot of your missionary home family parents, they're bringing their kids into it too, and they're living that lifestyle with those kids. So tell us a little bit about what that looks like in the home.
So yeah, if you're a house parent in the home, you do have your children with you. We kind of draw the line at 4. So
I'm out.
yeah, you're out. You're off the hook today. But they'll grow up, they'll graduate. Mm-hmm. You can come back. Yeah. But yeah, because we want to make sure our resources are being used to serve the kids with the most need, and so we don't want to just be a private boarding school for Christians. Like that sounds amazing too, but that's not our calling. So we'll encourage them to look at some other ministry options if that's what they apply when they've got too many kids. But 4 kids of your own, even if that was the case, I would say on average 2 is about what our house parents come with. And they have their own little, so this giant house, kind of the shape of a small H. So there's a central hallway, not hallway, but a central living space. It's got the dining room, the dinner table, a study area, and a living room. So it's kind of like one great room with all of that kitchen and everything together. And then there's 3 basically halls that go off different directions. So there's a girls' wing. So all the girls that come to live in the house, they live down one wing. All the boys live down another wing. And then the house parents have 2 rooms for their children and themselves. And so those that come with more kids, some of their kids will live down one of those halls. And so the state always has a subtract. Yep. So if all houses can hold 10. So if they've got 2 kids, we can have 8 place kids there. And so the parents are never supervising more than 10 children. On average, I would say our house parents supervise 8 place kids is kind of the average. So some are doing 6 and some are doing 10, but on average 8 is good. And it sounds impossible, if you think about like, well, how could you ever do that? But they're not 10 babies. They're not 10 17-year-olds. They're across the spectrum. There are boys, there are girls, and there's differences. We know that some Sometimes you get a boy that's super neat and clean, and then sometimes you get a girl who's a mess and a wreck, and so some parts of the household chores and things you have to spend more time with one kid, where the other kid kind of takes care of himself in that area. But in another area like his schoolwork, you're helping him a lot with schoolwork and not the girl. So it is just an interesting dynamic of we try to blend those families as best we can. Cookson Hills was one of the original in the country that ever put boys and girls in the same home. And what we did, the reason we did that, going back into the 60s, our director at the time, his theory, and it's been proved out, was that the best way for kids to understand what a family is to be in the most natural family possible. Well, that's not a house of all girls or a house of all boys. That's both genders under one roof. And learning, how does a young man learn to respect a woman in his life? Well, he learns to respect his sister in that house, right? He learns to respect his mom. But if you're in a house that's just like, there are a lot of children's homes where it's just a college age student in it with a dorm full of boys, supervising, doing shift work. Well, those boys are never going to learn, how to respect their mom or how to respect their wife in the future, or just women in general. It's just not going to happen in that setting. They're going to learn how to be a roughhousing young man. Yep, for sure. And so we realized that long ago, that we want to get back to what God showed the family to be: a mom and a dad, brothers and sisters living under one roof, learning to love each other in a godly way. And that's the dynamic that is seen there. But the kids will learn to cook, they'll learn to clean, they'll learn to make their bed, they'll learn to do their own laundry. They'll learn to play and have fun and do that in a correct way, so that they don't hurt others. It's really true what they say, when that hurt people. And that's one of the things that kids have to unlearn while they're here. They've been hurt, and sometimes their first reaction is to lash out in a way that's harmful. And so we have to help them unlearn that, and learn how to, it's not easy, but learn to speak their feelings and talk through their problems. And so there's a lot that goes into being a house parent, but they don't do that on their own. They're being trained. So they get training the first month they're here. They're going to get a lot of training. Before that month's out, they're going to start receiving their first kid. And it just grows from there. And as soon as you have a kid, you have a whole new set of things you need to learn, because you're going to your social worker and you're saying, wait, now I see this behavior. We weren't ready for that. No, of course you weren't, because your children are yours, and you kind of know their reactions. This is a 12-year-old that you've never met before, and they respond different when you put ketchup on the table. Why? I don't know. It's just a traumatic response. Okay, so we're going to help them work through that. So it can be seen as fun. It's not always, like you said, it's not so difficult that no one would ever do it. We obviously have people that do it all the time and love it. And so if you're willing to, as Christ called us, sacrifice something of yourself for what God's got going on in His kingdom, you'll find joy along the way, and that's exciting.
I think too, it's so important because we're not talking about 12 kids out there, a little house on the prairie out by them. They're lonesome. I mean, you're talking about a campus, a community that's wrapped around these parents and wrapped around these kids. And there's these, like you said at the beginning of your transition, there's nets out there. There's safety nets out there that you have a team in your office that's willing to help. You've got a counselor, the social worker, and just other parents that, I mean, how beneficial is that just to have a bunch of people that are like-minded in their raising, and like you said, positively impact future generations. And that's just remarkable to know that they've got this little slice in Northeast Oklahoma. Yeah.
And we see them grow up. So Heath that preceded me, he was a former kid, a place kid here, and came back, and he went to Bible college and preached for a while, but came here, served as the director for about 5 years, and gave back to where his beginnings were. Just he wanted to give something back. We have board members that are successful business people that grew up here. This was their home. Their childhood was influenced by Cookson Hills, and so we see how different their trajectory is, successful people, but also having and raising successful families, learning how to be a positive difference in the world because of their time here. So it's not just that we think that'll happen. We know it happens. We see it in the results of the lives of these students.
Yeah.
Again, not every kid is that way. But we reserve hope for every student that their life could be that same way. And it won't be if we don't speak Christ into their lives. It doesn't happen just by chance. We have to be the ones spreading that light of Christ into their lives.
So let's talk about the two things that are unique for Cookson Hills, the school and the horse therapy. Tell me a little bit about the school now. All the kids that are everybody on campus, that's their school.
Correct. So that's one of the enrollment criteria is the kid has to be able to perform academically at a level. They can't have a giant learning disability or be so special needs that they couldn't participate in our school program. We're not a public school. We don't have the special needs aspects covered. So we do have some house parent children that will go, say, to our public school because of special needs. And that is an area where, like we give the state a hard time, but that's an area where the state, really their resources and their abilities outweigh ours as the extension here of the church. But yeah, otherwise, every student will attend the school. All place kids go to school. We're ACSI certified. So I don't know if your congregation is familiar with an ACSI school, but that's no small thing to get ACSI certification. We just finished our second certification process. We had one of our people that comes and evaluates us. He's at a top 10 in the nation school, not just for ACSI, but like in the nation, college preparatory type school. And he said he came expecting like, well, what can they really do with a student population that's based on at-risk kids? Their standards are going to be pretty low, is what he expected. And he was pleasantly surprised that no, we don't. We challenge our students. They get a quality education. The kids here, they see ACT scores routinely 2 to 3 points higher than their public school counterparts, and they shouldn't. They should be the kids that are getting Fs and Ds because that's what they had before they came here. And then I think our statistics are like about 60 to 70% of them will be on our honor roll by the end of their first year. So they're making huge strides. We have about 15 dedicated staff for the school. Okay. So that's kindergarten, first grade is together. So elementaries, basically every 2 grades are together. Then we have the mid school and the high school. And we have band, chorus. We have volleyball, basketball, cross country. So they get sports, they get music, math. And then we have a special program called For Him, which is basically if a community member, doesn't have to be a teacher, anybody in the community has a special skill or has something they want to teach or share about. It might be a hobby like wood burning. It might be gardening, quilt making. The kids can sign up to take those during this term that we're in right now, and they get a chance to basically explore something. So kind of like a 4-H or a Boy Scout kind of deal where you're kind of learning something fun. This year, the most creative one I'd ever heard that we've done, one of our staff members is teaching about solitude and quiet and meditation.
Hey, that's something you need to learn.
I mean, for our kids especially, and she wanted to call it "How to Do Nothing," but I think we came up with a better title for it. But so really, we look at our staff and say, you may be a maintenance support staff person, but you know about working with wood. How could you use that to influence these kids with the message of Christ? And so they're doing a wood burning class, and they're taking things that God made in creation, and they're learning how to etch that into wood and learn that they can do a skill. So that's our school. We're a Christian worldview school. We teach from the Word of God. Everybody has a Bible class from kindergarten all the way up to high school. We also teach independent learning skills, which is basically how to balance your checkbook, how to go on a date, not mess it up, how to just get through life. And so they're doing everything from taking Financial Peace University with Dave Ramsey to taking the love languages little quiz and figuring out what their love language is, and just learning kind of what motivates them, what moves them, how they can overcome some of the routine problems we see. So they'll go on some field trips. We have a Google plant about an hour from here where it's near the power plant, where they can go and learn that without a college degree, you can make about $50,000 to $60,000 if you'll just show up and clock in every day. Like, like you don't have to.
Yeah.
College isn't for a lot of our kids. A lot of our kids are going to find alternative ways to make a living. And so we try to show them that that's available, that they don't all have to go off to college. We also cooperate with our local technical school for high schoolers. And so they can learn welding, electrical, nursing, cosmetology. So there's other opportunities for them as well.
Cool. Well-rounded, like you said, positive impact for future generations, and they're
Yep.
well-rounded. It's not just, I just say not just a spiritual upbringing, but you're getting the mind, body, and spirit
Yes.
all in one while they're gearing up. So therapy, tell me about the horse. And that's so cool to know that this is like the first one in the world.
Yeah. I think at some point somebody kind of figured this out, but I know Johnny Clark, as far as I know, bringing this to a children's home probably was the first person to really do that. And he's still doing this. He works at Tulsa Boys Home, which is not too far from us, about an hour and a half away, and still doing it. So when we brought in a new equine specialist, that's who we sent her to learn. It's a really powerful gift. So the horses are pack community animals. They welcome human beings. The way God has made horses and people together, they see us as part of their pack. So they're really quick to warm up to people. And what they do as a pack animal, they're also a prey to most predators. So they're always alert to what one horse is thinking or feeling. They're able to understand that on a really intimate level. And they also do that with people. So if a child comes down to the horse area, and so the first thing they'll do is just learn how to be safe around the horses. And a lot of times the question is, well, this horse is being weird. And horse specialist is like, well, that's interesting. What do you think you could do to help the horse not be weird or feel skittish or whatever it's going on? And pretty soon they're learning, they're understanding that the horse is basically mimicking my behavior. Mm-hmm. So if I come down and I'm mad, I'm probably going to deal with a mad horse. If I come down and I'm angry or sad or whatever, like the horse is going to pick up on that and it's going to exhibit that. Well, that helps the equine supervisor, helps her kind of pick up on some things that the horses are going through. And so doing horsemanship, you deal with that a little bit. We also do the spur games, which is what Johnny developed. And those can be done in groups. So a whole family can come down and work on team building kind of stuff, or they can go through a Bible verse with the horses and learn what that Bible verse really means for their life. But then the other part that we've added to that is called EGALA. So EGALA is an actual psychotherapy that our counselors are able to participate with the equine specialists and the kids. And if you got time for a quick story, here's one of those God moments. I can save it for the end, but in one of those sessions, one of our first sessions we ever did, and we asked the child if we could share this, but she said yes. So, but her job, she's given a task, and these horses, there were 3 in the arena, and her task was to take them all to one end of the arena and get them to stand in a line, which, depending on the nature of the horse, may or may not be an easy thing to do. It could be difficult. And she would get 2 lined up. And every time she got 2 lined up, the third one would come trotting in and kind of push his way between them and mess it up. And they let her do this for about 10, 15 minutes. And then they said, well, come over here and just talk to us about what you see going on. And they said, now relate this to your life. How is what's happening here like your life? And she thought for a moment, and she says, okay, those 2 horses, that's like my mom and I. And we'll get things going pretty good together. And then my stepdad will just come in and just wreck everything. Wow. Okay. All right. And they said, well, we could see that. We see how that would be. Now we said, everything in this arena has something to do with your life. So who are you in this story? If that horse is your mom and that one's you, and then the other horse is stepdad, who are you? And she says, well, I guess I'm Cookson Hills. I'm the one trying to get mom and me back together and make it work. Mm-hmm. And so, talking to the counselors about that story, they're like, so there's about a month's worth of things we can explore there in counseling sessions, right? Like that's that 1 hour at the barns with the horses gave them insight into her feelings about stepdad and this and that. And then they said the session kind of ended. They said, well, it sounds like you and stepdad have some disagreements and things aren't going so well there. If you want to, you could go over that horse and you can talk to it like that's your stepdad and just tell him what you're thinking. And so she went over and had a conversation with the horse. And of course, you can imagine if you're a counselor, you're stepping in a little bit to hear like what is that kid saying? And she said something to the effect of patting it on the neck, saying, "I know you're a good human. I mean horse," but they're like, she had totally bought into the story, and she was expressing her thoughts to that horse that she can't say out loud to her stepdad because of fear of retribution or just I don't want to let him know that it bugs me or whatever. But she finally was able to say out loud the things that were deep inside her heart. And that's what therapy is about. It's about letting a child speak what's going on in their life to a trusted adult so that they can begin to not erase that pain, not make it all go away, but they can address it, realize that they can grow past it and beyond it, because it will always be with them. If you were abused or neglected, you won't ever forget that. But you can realize that there's hope to move past it and that God can still do something great in your life despite those difficult circumstances. Yeah. When counselors evaluate children, they will note how many adverse childhood experiences they've had. Most adults have experienced at least one or two in their life. Our kids come to us and they're not grown yet, right? They're still children. They've come to us with at least 5 adverse childhood experiences. That's a lot of weight to carry if you're a kid. We say they carry more than a backpack to school. Like they're carrying all of that weight, and our job is to help them take that burden off. And as that burden is released, they're able to then focus on school or focus on friendships or focus on loving a parent or whatever it is that's been difficult. So
it's so neat to hear these stories. It's Sierra who's in your video. I don't know if she's still on campus with you. The birth mom of our 3 adopted kids. I see her in Sierra, and our birth mom didn't have what Sierra has now. And I just kind of imagine what could have been different. I don't think I would have had 3 more in my home if somebody to be honest, if somebody would have stepped up in our birth mom's situation, like they have Sierra situation, how to her to be able to overcome, like you said, those adverse childhood difficulties and know that they've got a team of people and a community of people and a God that loves and cares for them and could change and bring healing and hope to what otherwise wouldn't happen.
Exactly right. Yeah, we remind the kids, some of the kids will be having a rough time, and it's real easy for them to lash out at a house parent or a teacher and kind of feel like you're not in this for me. And we want to remind them this probably is the only place you'll ever live where literally everyone you are around is for you. We want you to be successful and to find the hope of Christ. Like you're not going to find that when you leave here and you go back home. You're not going to find that in your public school. We won't find like they'll want to, but there's so many here. It's such a focused attention to each individual student. It's just a powerhouse of change that's able to happen. And so we just remind them, take advantage of it. Like, I can't guarantee you'll be here forever. Like it's important that you take advantage of this while you're here.
Let's talk funding. I know Central helps fund, and I saw on your website too, individuals and churches are your biggest funders. How does that work? And then kind of tell us a little bit about your biggest needs and what you see for the future of Cookson Hills. That's lots of questions you can answer there.
Absolutely. So you're right. So we have multiple areas, buckets, if you will, funding. So the churches used to be probably 80% of our support. At this point now, individuals are even or a little bit above churches. Mm-hmm. And so church support is interesting because It's really impacted by a lot of things that we have no control over. So, your missions leadership is going to decide for what's best for Central. I have no control over that. I can tell you the best story that I have, and you could still say, that's great, Ron, and make another decision. And so while church support is important, what we recognize is it's really about communicating individually to the people within your church, or individuals even outside of your church that are just connected to Cookson Hills some other way. So maybe they sent one of their family to Cookson Hills, or they have some connection there. Those individuals typically, our retention rate is what we call it, but the people that give once, most donors will only give once to anything. So like if you saw a Red Cross ad on television and you're like really moved because there was a hurricane, so you're probably not going to turn around and give the Red Cross the next month too. You're probably going to give once, maybe in your lifetime, maybe twice, something like that. Our retention rate is about 80 to 90% of people that start giving, stay giving to us. And that includes all spectrums from churches to individual donors. I'd say with donors, it's not 100%, but it's really high because they really resonate with the stories that we tell, and they understand that we're not just telling you give to an organization. We're saying give to Sierra, give to Lexi, help Alec with his future, and that's just different than what a lot of organizations can say, So we're really proud of the stories that we tell. Every kid gets to write their own story. So if you saw Sierra in our video, we asked her, like, do you want to be in this video? Is this something I can do that? Then we also wrote her story up as a blog. Okay. And she literally will write it out. The English teacher and her will go over it, make sure it's got the correct grammar and all of that. And then she'll sit down with the storytelling manager and they'll talk about, can I add, a paragraph that explains this? Like, you didn't really explain what happens in Igala. Can I just put in there? Oh yeah, you can add that. So they'll go through that together. So by the end, before we ever published any of their stories, the kid has signed off. They said, yep, that's my story. I love it. And so you'll see some really authentic things said in our stories. They're not always the Christian thing, maybe, to say, like but it is. We had one girl, talk about just she had a fundamental disagreement with Cookson, and yet she still loved Cookson. Mm-hmm. And she was so thankful for being there, and she didn't really go into what that was, but you could kind of read between the lines. Okay, well, she had something that was really important to her that Cookson didn't allow or wasn't a fan of, that she couldn't express while she was there. But at the same time, she says those were authentic Christian people. Like, it was good to know that they existed.
Speaking higher than what she wants. Yeah,
absolutely. And she didn't leave early. She stayed, she did the program. And so I think our donors respect that we're not trying to manipulate children, or we don't,
you're helping them shape their testimony. And that's the power that they could take with them after.
Yeah. Yep. So that's about the donors. So really, individuals within the church, it's great what Central does. It's great what other churches do. If your church is supporting Cookson, what I would just encourage you to recognize is that if it's important enough for the church to support, I probably as an individual need to be looking into this and see if this is something I want to support personally, because we all have that. I give to my church for all the things the church does, but what do I want to personally direct my inheritance to, my legacy, or my 401k extra, whatever it is? If there's something, like a lot of businesses do, giving matches, we can partner with you and help you recognize that. So if anyone's interested in that, they can contact me directly here at Cookson Hills. We can help them set up a corporation match. We can help them set up a legacy gift. Those are super important to us. And so you can go to the website. There's a contact form there, cooksonhills.org, and just say, hey, I'm interested in giving in such way, and we'll set you up. As far as our needs, our biggest need is our general fund. Okay, so just go into the website and saying, I just want to give, and they'll show you some different categories of ways you can help. But on that general giving page, it all goes to the general fund. So whether you're giving $60 a month to help with a classroom need, or you're giving $40 a month to help with a kid's need, it's really going to the same bucket. The only things that are extra and above that are our legacy gifts do go to what we call the Hallam Fund. So these are inheritances that are given usually after you're gone, after you're passed. And those go into an endowment that we're building. So we have about $5 to $6 million, depending on the stock market. We hope it's closer to 6, but it's probably not. And once we get up to about 10 million, we'll be able to draw from that. And the hope there is that as churches change and grow, a lot of times Cookson Hills is one of the first missions to get dropped. And the reason is we're not people that grew up in your church. We're not your Timothys. So you're going to keep supporting your Timothys that came from your church. You might decide Cookson Hills is doing great. I mean, look at that information they sent us. They're awesome. Okay. So we understand that. So, but if we could get that Hallam Fund up to about $10 million, hopefully we can offset the churches that drop off, so that we don't end up with a large negative. So the Hallam Fund would be our second thing that you could donate to. Do that by setting up your will so that your money goes, so much of it goes to Cookson Hills, and that'll go into Hallam Fund. And the third thing we've got right now is a building project. So pre-pandemic, we set up a project to see what would cost to build a building. We got our ducks all nice row, $800,000, $900,000. Okay, sounds good. We got some grant money from the Maybe Foundation to kind of finish this off. We raised all the money in a year. We broke ground, and as we're breaking ground, we're realizing that costs have really changed on putting something together. So the building now is 1.5 million. So we're like, oh, well, that's interesting. So we've got about a shortfall, about $300,000 to $400,000 on finishing our building. We have enough that we'll get the first part of it done for sure, the shell. And this is where the counseling will happen for the kids. So right now they're going to the library. And you know how libraries sometimes have like a little workroom just off the main library? That's where counseling happens for us. So you go into the library to deal with your fears and your angers and your frustrations, and then you exit through your classmates as you go back to class. Well, nobody wants to do that. So this is still connected to the school, but it's down a different hallway. It'll exit out into its own separate building. They'll have a lot more privacy. We won't have to put construction paper over windows and turn on a radio just so you can't hear what's going on behind the doors. So it's a needed addition. And the other part of that is a daycare for the staff, little. So those that are, infant to about 4 years old, where do they go when mom and dad are working at the school or doing their chores on campus? They can go to that daycare space. So we're in the process of that. I think we'll hopefully be done with construction. If the money gets completed in time, we'll be able to complete the construction by this fall, maybe September, something like that. So we're really hopeful that churches like yours will jump on board, send a special gift. Don't divert your general giving funds. Like, that's really important. We got to pay everybody their wage here. But if you can give an extra gift to the building fund, you can find that on the website as well.
Yeah, we'll make sure to list that on the website, because that's really a reason why, Ron, we wanted to have you guys talk about Cookson Hills and other missions that Central supports, because it's good to give, but like you said, if you want to be a blessing to others, that, you're giving your tithe, and that tithe's going to the storehouse, and that storehouse is making, providing for those needs. But how is you as an individual can see a need and meet a need and provide for that need, even when you're in Mount Vernon, Illinois, and you could do that in Northeast Oklahoma. So, yeah. I mean, gosh, I feel like we could ask so many more questions, because I'd love to get more into like, what does a house parent do during the day and all this, but I want to make sure to continue on this. We might have to have you back. If it's a good conversation, Ron, I always say that, but hopefully people that I haven't said that to, they didn't think it was a bad conversation. But Ron, I'm grateful for what you're doing. I'm grateful for your leadership in this area. And again, just a unique and structured way of meeting a need, and telling kids that they are not alone, that they are not lost, and there is hope and there's healing in Jesus Christ's name. And super, super good. So, but we're not going to let you off the hot seat yet. Okay. We're going to take a quick break from Cookson Hills and our conversation, and we're going to just talk about how God's working in your life. So we're going to ask you the question that we ask all of our guests on the Central Weekly: how has God been working in your life lately? Ron Riley, we will be right back with you. And we're back with the Central Weekly, and we're back with Executive Director of Cookson Hills, Mr. Ron Riley. Ron, the question, how has God been working in your life lately?
Lately, I have been asking God to speak to me in my quiet time. I know that sounds maybe a little weird or a little out there. We all take time to talk to God and tell him everything we want. But I've really been asking him, just to help me hear his voice and know what I need to know for each day and each week. And it's been really amazing that when I'm quiet and not just shouting at him all the things I need, the number of times he does show up and kind of puts a nudge on my heart of where I need to be and what I need to be doing. And that's just one of those, it's super personal to me, but it's really a powerful testimony of who God is, that he cares enough about Ron that he will speak into his life, sometimes correction and sometimes affirmation, whichever I'm needing at the moment. And he kind of seems to know what I need, like a good father does. He knows when I need to hear the hard truth of, I haven't seen you in your word, I haven't seen you studying the Bible like you were last week. What's going on? So just I think some beautiful fine tuning in my inner person has been going on. That's been really good, and just been having a joy going out to different churches and visiting with people. And some churches let me preach. So I did about 25 years in the pulpit. I even preached in Kinmundy, Illinois, and some of your people will know where that is. So
yes.
Yeah. So I preached there for about a year and a half. But so getting out and actually getting to preach sermons again after the pandemic has been really, that's a lot of fun. And just sharing with these folks that they're helping some really, really amazing kids. I think when Sierra's talking in the video about some of the things that she thought of herself, sometimes I think the church thinks about our kids that way too, that maybe they're not good kids. And they're amazing kids. And just getting to see them grow each and every day is a pretty cool joy. And then get to go out and tell the stories to churches. That's a lot of fun. So God's been working on my heart, and he's been letting me work in the churches. And I think that's awesome.
I would almost call you the Cookson Hills chief cheerleader.
Absolutely.
You get to tell the story.
Not far from wrong.
Yes. Yeah. And it's so neat, and you're doing a great job, Ron. So keep it up. And I'm excited for this conversation, what it will do when people hear about what's going on at Cookson Hills and how they could step up and meet a need. And so we're grateful that you took the time to join us on the Central Weekly, Ron.
Hey, thanks so much.
Have a good week, and we'll see you later.
Okay.
That was a good conversation with Ron. Thank you so much for Ron taking the time to tell us about Cookson Hills, because gosh, they're doing such a great job. And I loved how he talks about meeting these kids and wrapping them with care, because it's not just a one-on-one, it's a whole community of people on the hills of Cookson. And they are really taking care of kids that are at risk.
I think it's great to know too, just as a Central family, that when you give here at Central, you support not ministries like Cookson Hills. You support all these missionaries that Jared has talked to over the last few weeks and the next to come. You are actively supporting by giving here at Central. You support all of these ministries and help make them possible.
All right, next week, episode number 57 of the Central Weekly, series within series. We're looking at A Credible Count week number 5, and that is, I did the same thing, David and Goliath. Oh! We really
good job, bud.
Sound effects. David and Goliath, and we're going to be joined. This is the funny thing is, Katura Richardson is going to be joining us from Casa por Cristo, and she is going to train me in the art of Spanish.
Oh, really?
And we're going to look at Casa por Cristo. I even screwed it up already. In Mexico, and she's a small person. She's little. That's why I brought it. She's not a Goliath of a person.
Okay.
She's very small.
Oh.
She's like a Brooke Paninsky.
Is she really?
Yeah. I went to school with her. Trevor did too. So here's the cool way we went to different. Yeah, I'll talk about it next week. So next week, make sure to join us. Share this episode with somebody that needs to hear about the incredible work that God's doing in our lives today. See you guys.